Dividing integers with integer chips. This is a digital lesson. This follows my other lessons for adding, subtracting, and multiplying with integer chips. So this starts out explaining to the students or a review that integers are whole numbers and their opposites. Does not include decimals or fractions. Red chips are negative, yellow chips represent positive numbers. So, where do we divide integers in real life? Well, one example is in the game of golf, and we're going to show students how they do that. So, it just explains if they're not familiar with the game of golf, they want the lowest score they can get. That means the fewest number of hits to get the ball into the hole. So, we're looking for lower scores. Now, professionals sometimes can get negative scores, those really good scores. It's very hard to get a negative score in golf, but the professionals can do it. So we're going to give them an example here. Let's say that Tiger played in a golf tournament. It lasted 3 days. His scores for each day were 3, -5, and -4. So we're going to move the chips in order to show those 3 scores. And to move the chips, you just click and hold on each one, and you can move them where you like. So on the second day, he got -5. And on the third day, he got -4. Now we want to add these 3 scores together. So we're going to review adding with integer chips. We want to add these 3 scores together, and then we're going to divide by the number of days of the tournament. So here are all of the chips from the previous slide. If we line them up into 2 rows, a row of red and a row of yellow, we can take out the 0 pairs because a red and a yellow added together just add up to 0. So we call them 0 pairs. When we take out the 0 pairs, what's left is -6. So when he added all 3 scores together, he got -6. So they're going to type that in. Now, in order to divide, we're going to divide by this negative number. We've got -6, and we want to divide it by 3 because there were 3 days in the tournament. So if we take these chips and divide them into 3 equal groups, every group will be -2. So his average score was -2. And this is just a recap. They're going to type in the 3 scores. They added them together. They got -6. They're going to type that in and then divide by 3, and that gave them the average score of -2. We've got one more example here. This is Michelle in a golf tournament that lasted 4 days. So students are going to move the chips to show the 4 scores that she got. On slide 12, she's going to line up all the chips. Okay, so you've got to move these kind of close together because there were 12 negatives from the previous slide and 4 positives. So if they line these up, so it goes all the way across, there's 12 negatives and 4 positives. So here are the 0 pairs. What's left are all of these red chips that are not included here. And there should be 8 negative chips left over. So she added up her scores, she got -8. She's going to take that -8, divide it into 4 equal groups because there were 4 days in the tournament, and she gets the same score that Tiger did of -2. There'll be -2 in each box. And then it just recaps for the students what they just did to get that average. Now, how do we use integer chips to show division of a negative number? Well, here we've got -8 divided by 4, -4. So another way of looking at this is we've got -8 and we're dividing it into groups of -4. So here's a group of -4, here's a group of -4. We've used all the chips. How many groups are there? There are 2 groups. So our answer is 2. -8 divided into groups of -4, and that gives us 2 groups. So the answer is 2. So students are going to be doing this on the next few slides. Here we have -12 divided by -3. So they're going to take these 12 negative chips, divide them into groups of 3. And then they're going to count the groups. They'll get a positive answer, the number of groups. So they got a couple more to practice with. Now, how do we use integer chips to show division if we're dividing by a positive number by a negative number? Now, that's a little bit more tricky. So one way we can look at this is that 9 divided by negative 3 is the opposite of 9 divided by 3. They're going to be opposite each other. So we can easily use the chips to show 9 divided by 3. 3 groups of 3 each. So if we take 9 divided by negative 3, then our answer is going to be the opposite. The opposite of 3 is negative 3. So 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3. I'm going to show this on the next slide. So 8 divided by 4. We're going to divide our 8 into groups of 4. And there are 2 groups. So our answer is 2. 8 divided by negative 4 would be the opposite of 8 divided by 4. So we know our answer is going to be negative 2. And they could put these into place if they want. Okay, so then we get down to slide 21, and they're asked to go back and look on previous slides. So on slides 19 and 20, the signs were different when we divided. So we got one positive number, one negative number, and our answers were negative. So they're just going to type in negative. So when the signs were different, our answer was negative. If they go back to slide 16, 17, 18, they can see that when the signs were the same, they ended up with a positive answer. So they can see that the rules for dividing integers are exactly the same as the rules for multiplying integers. If the signs are the same, the answer is positive. If the signs are different, the answer is negative. And they're going to use those rules to solve each one of these. And they just type in the answer in each one. So that is a digital lesson on dividing integers with integer chips.